2020 is an opportune moment to focus on feminist foreign policy, since it marks the triple anniversary of important milestones: 25 years for the Beijing Platform for Action, 10 years for the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security, as well as 5 years for the Sustainable Development Goal 5.
Women and traditionally marginalized groups have historically been underrepresented in government, policy making, and subsequently in foreign policy. This has led to foreign policies that traditionally neglect the interests of these groups, ultimately increasing and reinforcing pre-existing gender inequalities and power orders.
Today, with the global system reeling in the context of environmental catastrophes, staggering levels of inequality, conflict and confrontational political leadership, the demand for a transformative and more inclusive foreign policy is increasing rapidly.
2020 is an opportune moment to focus on feminist foreign policy, since it marks a triple anniversary of important milestones: 25 years for the Beijing Platform for Action, 10 years for the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security, as well as 5 years for the Sustainable Development Goal 5 on gender equality and women's empowerment.
In order to map the future development of a feminist foreign policy agenda, the Open Think Tank Network set out for a transnational participatory process to answer the question, what should feminist foreign policy look like in the 2020s?
The Open Think Tank Network consists of 5 grassroots think tanks from Germany, France, Switzerland, Austria and the UK.
We are a large international community of young volunteers and foreign policy enthusiasts working on making foreign policy more inclusive. The Crowd Innovation Platform Policy Kitchen allows us to scale inclusive processes across borders.
We organized 7 virtual workshops and published an open call for ideas. Our activities attracted an international audience we could never have reached with physical formats alone.
Overall, more than 180 participants joined the Policy Kitchen Challenge and collaboratively developed more than 80 policy proposals.
Based on all the inputs, the Policy Kitchen team puts forward the following definition of a feminist foreign policy. A feminist foreign policy seeks to achieve overall equality based on rights, is fundamentally pacifist, and promotes a regenerative approach to nature.
This rich material became the basis of a comprehensive publication on feminist foreign policy. 5 broad themes emerged from these ideas:
intersectionality, representation and methodology, physical and mental safety and autonomy, environment and climate change, peace and security, and trade, economy and informal work.
Here are some of our favorite ideas that came out of the process.
Making foreign policy durable through a feminist approach. Various intersecting forms of discrimination need to be considered in everyday policy-making processes. In order to do so, training on unconscious gender and racial biases needs to be implemented for all staff in foreign affairs ministries.
To drive action on gender-based violence and sexual and reproductive health and rights, feminist foreign policies can and should establish purple lines to define the standards that they will promote and defend. By taking the existing concept of red lines and turning it into an accessible but powerful rhetorical tool for defining feminist foreign policy agendas, we can translate global frameworks, conventions, and treaties into purple lines that represent the concrete issues and actions that feminist foreign policies will mobilize around and defend all over the world.
When tackling climate change, also the impact on social justice has to be assessed. Such research would inform policymakers as to how different groups in societies are affected differently by environmental policies. Thereby, the specific needs of particularly vulnerable groups, including women, have to be taken into consideration.
In the Peace and Security chapter, we highlight the importance of a human security agenda, in which lives of individuals are secured, rather than the traditional state security, which is more worried with external military threats, and while trying to protect the state, ends up contributing with higher insecurity of the lives of its citizens and non-citizens. One example can be seen in migration routes for refugees, since, with higher securitization and military presence at the border, the lives of this group that's already vulnerable and marginalized becomes more unsafe.
In addition to our emphasis on human security, we do recognise the practical realist dimension of security that predominates the international arena. But a regulation-based approach to the arms trade, conducted under a militarised patriarchal context, will only continue to perpetuate systemic violence through legal avenues and thus remains inadequate. We urge states that have adopted a feminist foreign policy to begin a genuine pursuit of global disarmament, beginning with committing to phase out their own arms exports and applying multilateral pressure on violators of this commitment.
To ensure gender equality in trade and foreign direct investment, states should incorporate the voices of women's intersectional organizations in global economic governance, especially from the Global South, in relevant governance institutions and summits. This could, among other things, entail a reform of the WTO to include a standing civil society advisory board.
To tackle unpaid care work, we need to promote the engagement of men and boys and raising awareness about the need for care work redistribution at the international policy level.
Curious to dive deeper? This publication will be launched early December and will be available for download on policykitchen.com and openthinktank.org.